Minyu stood at the window of his office, watching the twin suns set over the valley. The wheat fields stretched as far as he could see, golden and beautiful. His 3 children were somewhere down there, playing in the park near the school. Seoul had been his home for 12 years now, and he loved every corner of it. His computer beeped. Minyu turned and sat down, expecting another farming report or supply request. Instead, his screen showed an emergency alert. Unknown ships had entered the system. Big ships, military ships. He pressed the communication button. "Are you seeing this?" His voice came through, calm but worried. She was the chief doctor at the colony hospital. "Yes, Minyu. The sensors show 40 large vessels. They're not human ships." Minyu felt his heart beat faster. In all the years since humans had left Earth and spread across the stars, they had never met another intelligent species. Until now. "All department heads, meet me in the command center." "Now," Minyu said into the colony-wide channel. 20 minutes later, Minyu stood before the screens with his team. The alien ships were massive, dark, and covered with weapons. They moved closer to Seoul with clear purpose. The young agricultural engineer stood next to Minyu. His hands shook slightly. "Sir, should we evacuate?" Before Minyu could answer, the screens lit up with an incoming message. The face that appeared was like nothing they had seen before. Reptilian features, yellow eyes, scales that seemed to shimmer. The creature spoke in a harsh, clicking language, but the computer translated instantly. "Humans of this world, I am commander of the Empire. This system now belongs to us. You have 12 hours to leave this planet. Take only what you can carry. Your ships will not be harmed if you leave immediately. Refuse, and we will take the planet by force." The screen went dark. Silence filled the command center. Then everyone started talking at once. The schoolteacher who had been documenting colony life spoke up. "We can't evacuate everyone in 12 hours. We have 250,000 people here. Families, children, old people. We don't have enough ships." Minyu knew she was right. The colony had transport ships, but they were meant for supplies in small groups, not mass evacuation. It would take days, maybe weeks, to move everyone safely. "We need to contact Earth," Minyu said. "Get authorization to negotiate to buy time." Shook her head sadly. "Earth is 6 months away by communication signal. We're on our own." Minyu sat down heavily. He thought of his children, his wife, all the families who had come here to build a new life. He had to try something. "Send a message to the commander. Tell them we need more time. Tell them we're a peaceful colony. Tell them we have children here." The next 6 hours passed in chaos. Minyu tried to negotiate. He offered to share the planet. He offered to pay tribute. He begged for mercy. The commander's response was always the same. "You have 12 hours. Then we take what is ours." Meanwhile, organized what evacuation they could manage. The transport ships were loaded with children first, then the elderly. Mothers cried as they put their bobbies on the ships, not knowing if they would see them again. The ships could hold maybe 30,000 people total. The rest would have to stay and hope. Worked at the hospital trying to move patients who could be moved. 3,000 sick and injured people filled the beds. Most were too weak to travel. She held an old man's hand as he cried, terrified. "We'll be okay," she lied. "Help is coming." Set up her camera in the town square. If something happened, the galaxy needed to know. She recorded families saying goodbye. She recorded children asking why they had to leave their homes. She recorded the fear in everyone's eyes. At hour 8, everything changed. The sky lit up with fire. The ships had opened fire without warning. Minyu watched in horror as orbital beams struck the northern settlements. Entire towns vanished in seconds, turned to ash and dust. "They're firing on us," someone screamed. "Get to the shelters," Minyu shouted. "All ships launch now. Get everyone you can into space." The command center shook. Alarms screamed. Minyu tried to coordinate the evacuation, but communications were failing. They were targeting everything: power plants, water facilities, the spaceport. They weren't just conquering the planet, they were destroying it. The hospital took a direct hit. The building exploded in a ball of fire. 3,000 patients died instantly, never felt a thing. Was at an evacuation shelter, helping load children onto a transport. He saw the beam coming down from the sky. He threw himself over a group of 6 children, covering them with his body. The beam hit. The shelter collapsed. Died, but the children lived long enough to be pulled from the rubble by rescue workers. Was still recording. Her camera showed the destruction of her town, buildings falling, people running, ships trying to launch while fighters shot them down. Some transports made it to space. Many didn't. "They're not stopping," said into her camera, her voice shaking. "They're killing everyone, not just soldiers, everyone, children, families." A nearby explosion threw her to the ground. She crawled back to the camera, blood running down her face. "Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we tried to evacuate. Tell them they gave us no chance. Tell them we." The transmission ended. For 6 more hours they bombarded Seoul. When they were done, 90% of the colony was gone. The beautiful wheat fields were burning. The towns were rubble. The twin suns rose over a world of death. 847 people escaped in damaged transport ships. They carried the recordings. They carried the story. They carried images of what they had done. They weren't finished. Their ships moved into lower orbit and used special weapons. The ground itself began to glow and melt. They were glassing the planet, making it forever uninhabitable, erasing any trace that humans had ever lived there. When the fleet finally left, Seoul was a dead world. 249,153 people had died. Men, women, and children who wanted nothing more than to farm and live in peace. The survivor ships limped toward the nearest human outpost, 3 months away. On board held his daughter's shoes. They were all he had left of his family. He sat in the cargo bay and cried. The ships broadcast everything on all human channels. The recordings, the images, the horror. 6 months later, the transmissions reached Earth. Billions of humans saw what had happened at Seoul. They saw the children running. They saw the hospitals burning. They saw peaceful farmers murdered without mercy. Something changed in humanity that day. Something old and terrible woke up. Something that had slept since humans stopped fighting each other and reached for the stars. They had made a mistake. They thought humans were weak because they were peaceful. They didn't understand that humans had chosen peace, and that choice could be unmade. Earth's response would be something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral had not slept in 3 days. He stood in the war room deep beneath Luna Command, staring at the images from Seoul. His daughter's face looked back at him from one of the photos. She had been a nurse at the hospital that no longer existed. He touched the screen gently, then turned to face the assembled officers. Fleet Marshal stood at attention, her face hard as stone. Doctor from Weapons Development looked pale but determined. And the survivor they had flown in from the rescue ship sat in a chair with empty eyes. "Show them," said quietly. The lights dimmed. The recordings from Seoul played on the massive screen. For 30 minutes the officers watched. They saw the ships arrive. They saw the brief negotiation. They saw the bombardment that came 4 hours early. They saw people dying, children burning, hospitals exploding. When the lights came back on, several officers were crying. Others looked sick. Hands were clenched so tight her knuckles were white. "This happened 3 months ago," said. "They are still there in that region of space. They're expanding their empire. They think we'll do nothing." "What are our orders, sir?" asked. Pulled up a star map. "In 2 hours I address the United Human Assembly. They will vote on our response, but I wanted you to see this first, to understand what we're facing. These aliens don't negotiate. They don't compromise, they destroy." He looked at each officer. "We're going to ask the Assembly for authorization to mobilize. Not a small fleet, not a police action. Everything, every ship, every soldier, every resource from all 47 human worlds." The room was silent. Doctor spoke first. "Sir, that's never been done. Not since the colony wars ended 200 years ago." "The colony wars were humans fighting humans," said. "This is different. They have declared war on all of humanity by attacking Sol. We're going to respond as one species, one people." 2 hours later, stood before the United Human Assembly. 3,000 representatives from every human world filled the chamber. Cameras broadcast to billions watching across human space. Wore his dress uniform. His medals caught the light, but his face was that of a father who had lost his child. Members of the Assembly, citizens of humanity. 3 months ago, the Empire destroyed the colony of Sol. 249,153 people died. They were farmers, teachers, doctors, children. They were us. The massive screen behind him showed the recordings. The Assembly watched in silence. Many wept. They gave them 12 hours to evacuate. Then they attacked at hour 8, without warning, without mercy. They glassed the entire planet. They wanted to erase any proof that humans had ever lived there. Paused, but 847 survivors escaped. They brought us the truth. They brought us proof. And now they ask us, what will humanity do? He pulled up images of the fleet. Intelligence estimates the Empire has approximately 100,000 military vessels. They're conquering species throughout their region of space. They see us as weak, as easy prey. Stepped forward. "I propose we show them what humanity really is. I propose total mobilization. Every shipyard, every resource, every volunteer who wants to serve. We build a fleet unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen." The chamber erupted in discussion. An elderly representative from Mars stood. "Fleet Marshal, what you're describing would cost trillions. It would disrupt our economy, our way of life." Stood up slowly. He walked to the center of the chamber. His voice was quiet, but the microphones carried it clearly. "I held my daughter's body. She was 6 years old. Her name was, she liked to draw pictures of flowers." His voice cracked. "I couldn't find my wife or my son. They turned them to ash." He looked at the representative from Mars. "You talk about economy, about disruption. The disrupted 249,000 lives, forever. How much is that worth?" Silence filled the chamber. Then one by one representatives stood, from Earth, from Mars, from Europa, Titan, New Beijing, Nova Terra. All 47 human worlds rose together. The vote was unanimous: total mobilization, total war. The next 6 months changed humanity forever. Every shipyard in human space went to 24-hour production. Civilian ships were converted into warships. Old military vessels that had been in storage for a century were pulled out, refitted, and made ready for battle. Doctor worked without sleep, developing new weapons. Humanity had kept the peace for 200 years, but they hadn't forgotten how to make war. The weapons they created were terrible. Quantum disruptors that could tear apart enemy shields, planet crackers that could shatter worlds, rail guns that fired projectiles at relativistic speeds. Coordinated the logistics. 700,000 ships needed fuel, ammunition, food, and crews. Millions of volunteers signed up to serve. Young people who had never known war trained to fight. Engineers who had built farms now built battleships. Teachers became gunners. Farmers became soldiers. The shipyards of Mars worked around the clock. The factories of Earth produced weapons and armor. The ice miners of Europa refined fuel. Every human world contributed. Every person helped somehow. Soldiers painted names on their ships. The names of the dead from Sol. Minu's name appeared on dozens of vessels. Sname, Sname, Sname. Every single person who died was remembered. Other species in the galaxy watched with growing alarm. The peaceful humans were building a war machine. Messages came from the Galactic Council asking about Earth's intentions. Response was broadcast across the galaxy. They destroyed a peaceful colony without provocation. They murdered our people. We go to seek justice. Any species that interferes will be considered hostile. The Galactic Council sent a message to the humans are coming. Surrender. Beg for mercy. Return what you have taken. They bring 700,000 warships. The Overlord laughed when he received the message. 700,000 ships. Impossible. It had to be a trick. No species had ever built such a fleet. He allocated 15,000 ships to defend the border. It would be more than enough. On Earth, the Great Fleet began to gather. In orbit, around Luna, near Mars, the ships came from every human world, dreadnoughts 5 kilometers long, carriers holding thousands of fighters, destroyers, cruisers, support vessels, hospital ships, supply transports. The fleet was so large it blocked out the sun from parts of Earth. 700,000 warships, all bearing the flag of humanity, all carrying the memory of Sol. Stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Remembrance. Through the viewport, he could see ships stretching to the horizon in every direction. The largest military fleet in known galactic history, built in 6 months, crewed by volunteers, united by grief and determination. Stood beside him. All ships report ready, Admiral. We can launch on your command. Thought of his daughter, of Minu and his family, of all the people who died screaming while they showed no mercy. Send to all ships, he said. We go not for conquest, not for territory, we go for justice. They believe we're weak because we chose peace. They're about to learn that peace was a choice, and we're choosing something else now. He looked out at the vast armada. All ships, this is Admiral, today we launch. They have 4 months before we arrive at their space, 4 months to prepare, 4 months to realize their mistake, for Sol, for humanity, for every person who died that day, we're coming. 700,000 ships began to move. Their engines lit up like stars being born. The fleet left the Sol system in waves, each one carrying thousands of vessels. The journey would take 4 months, 4 months of travel through the void between stars. The galaxy watched and trembled. Humanity was no longer the peaceful newcomers. Something ancient had awakened, something that remembered tooth and claw, fire and blood, something that had built civilizations and toppled empires on Earth long before they reached the stars. They had attacked the wrong species. And now the long night was coming. Overlord sat on his command throne, reviewing reports from his border stations. The empire stretched across 40 star systems, and it was still growing. Every species they encountered either surrendered or died. It was the natural order of things. The strong conquered the weak. His tactical officer approached nervously. My lord, long-range sensors detect the human fleet. They're 3 weeks from our border. His yellow eyes narrowed. Numbers. My lord, the sensors must be malfunctioning. They show over 600,000 vessels. Stood up suddenly. Impossible, run diagnostics, check again. 3 hours later, the same officer returned. His scales had gone pale. My lord, every sensor station confirms it. The humans have mobilized their entire civilization. 700,000 warships, the largest fleet ever recorded. For the first time in his military career, felt something he didn't recognize. It took him a moment to name it: fear. Send word to all border stations. Full defensive positions, deploy all available ships. He paused. And send a message to the other systems. We need reinforcements. The problem was they had been expanding too fast. Their forces were spread thin across their empire. Most of their ships were scattered, occupying conquered worlds. The border had only 15,000 ships defending it, had thought it would be enough. He was wrong. Commander led the human vanguard, 50,000 ships under his command, all volunteers who had asked to be first into battle. His flagship, the Dawn's End, cruised at the front of the formation. Through the viewport, he could see the border station ahead, a massive military installation bristling with weapons. 5,000 warships surrounded it. All ships, this is Commander, remember Soul, remember why we're here. These aliens showed our people no mercy. We will show them what mercy looks like in battle, swift and absolute. All weapons fire at will. The human vanguard opened fire. 50,000 ships unleashed everything they had. The new weapons that Doctor had developed tore through shields like paper. Quantum disruptors made their armor useless. Rail guns firing at incredible speeds punched through their hulls. They fought back, but they had never faced an enemy like this. The humans flew with precision. Their tactics were flawless. Their weapons were devastating, and they showed no mercy at all. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, the border station was debris. 5,000 ships were destroyed. Human losses, 47 vessels. But that wasn't the terrifying part. The terrifying part was that this was just the vanguard. The main fleet was still coming. Lieutenant Sierra flew her fighter through the wreckage. Her parents had died at Seoul. She had volunteered the day she heard the news. Now she hunted fleeing command ships, making sure none escaped to warn the others. "Target locked," she said calmly, firing. Her missiles streaked through space. The command ship exploded. She moved to the next target and the next. No one was leaving this battlefield, not today. On the Dawn's End, watched the tactical displays. Send a message to Admiral, border station neutralized, beginning advance into space. Then he did something they hadn't expected. He broadcast on all frequencies, so every ship and station could hear. "This is Commander of the Human Defense Forces. You destroyed our colony at Seoul. You murdered our people. You gave them 8 hours instead of 12. You showed them no mercy. We will show you the same courtesy. This is your only warning. Evacuate your military personnel from all installations. We're coming." The message spread through space like wildfire. Panic followed. Soldiers who had never known defeat suddenly faced an enemy that outnumbered them 50-1. An enemy that had traveled across the stars for revenge. An enemy that gave no quarter. Captain commanded the dreadnought Soul's Fury. It was one of the new ships built specifically for this war. 5 kilometers long, covered in weapons, powered by reactors that could fuel a small city. He led a battle group of 10,000 ships, moving deep into territory. They found a military shipyard building new vessels. The shipyard had a defense force of 2,000 ships, gave them 1 hour to evacuate civilian workers. Then he destroyed it completely. "No mercy for the military," he said to his crew. "That's the rule. They chose to be soldiers. They chose to serve the empire that destroyed Seoul. They made their choice." But when they found civilian transports trying to flee the war zone, ships escorted them to safety. They couldn't understand it. The humans were ruthless to soldiers but protected civilians. Watched the reports come in. The humans were unstoppable. Every battle ended the same way, total defeat. His forces were being systematically destroyed. He called an emergency meeting with the Galactic Council. Representatives from dozens of species appeared on his screens. "The humans are massacring my forces," said. "You must intervene, stop this madness." The council representative and creature from a peaceful species clicked his mandibles. "Overlord, you initiated hostilities by destroying Seoul. The humans filed a formal declaration of war, following all galactic protocols. We cannot interfere." "They're bringing 700,000 ships for one colony," shouted. "Yes," the representative said calmly. "They are showing you the value they place on even one of their worlds. Perhaps you should have considered that before you attacked." Another representative spoke. "The humans are following the rules of war. They evacuate civilians before attacking. They only target military installations. They're showing more restraint than you did." Cut the connection in rage. No one would help him. They were alone. Reports kept coming. The human vanguard had split into 5 battle groups. Each group had 10,000 ships. Each group was larger than anything that could field. They moved through space like a scythe through wheat. At night looked at the sensor displays. The main human fleet was visible now, even from his. It covered so much space that it blocked out stars. 700,000 warships, all advancing in perfect formation. His people were starting to panic. Civilians who had cheered when Sol was destroyed now trembled at the retribution coming for them. Some tried to flee to neighboring systems, but where could they go? The humans were everywhere. Tried one last desperate move. He gathered 50,000 ships, everything he could pull back from the occupied territories. It was a quarter of his entire navy. He would send them in a suicide run against the human hospital ships. If he could kill their wounded, maybe he could make them negotiate. Fleet Marshal saw the attack coming. She had predicted it. 150,000 human ships moved to intercept. The tactical computers calculated the time to contact. 4 hours. "They're going for our hospitals," said to her staff. "They think we're soft, that we'll break if they hurt our wounded." She smiled coldly. "Show them how wrong they are. Every ship in the intercept force is authorized to use maximum force. No vessel gets past us. Not one." The battle was brief and brutal. 50,000 ships against 150,000 human vessels. They fought with desperation. The humans fought with controlled fury. When it was over, not a single ship survived. The human hospital ships never even raised their shields. Watched the battle from his command center. Watched his last major fleet dissolve into debris. Watched the humans prove they would protect their people at any cost. He drafted a surrender offer and sent it to the human flagship. The response came from Admiral himself. His face appeared on screen. The human looked old, tired, but his eyes were hard as diamonds. "Overlord, you attacked Sol and gave them 12 hours. Then you attacked at hour 8. You murdered 249,000 people in 8 hours. Leaned forward. We will accept your surrender in 8 hours, not before. Use that time to evacuate all military personnel from your capital. We're coming to your. In 8 hours, you will know what it feels like to count down to your doom." The screen went dark. Those 8 hours became the bloodiest of the war. The human fleet systematically destroyed every military installation they could find. Bases, shipyards, weapons facilities, supply depots. They worked with surgical precision, always evacuating civilians first, then reducing military targets to rubble. Doctors' planet crackers were deployed against 3 fortress worlds. Civilians were evacuated. Then the weapons were used. The fortress worlds, which had been military strongholds for centuries, were shattered. They watched in horror as their mightiest defenses were turned to asteroid fields. When the 8 hours ended, sat alone in his command center. The humans had stopped firing, but 400,000 human warships now surrounded his. Their weapons were charged and ready. More ships than had ever seen in his life. More ships than he had believed possible. His communication system beeped. Admiral's face appeared again. "We accept your surrender." Admiral stood on the bridge of the Remembrance looking down at The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. Billions of lived there. Families, children, people who had nothing to do with the attack on Sol. 400,000 human warships surrounded the planet. Every weapon was charged. One word from, and the planet would burn just like Sol had burned. Fleet Marshal stood beside him. "The military forces have surrendered, Admiral. Overlord is requesting terms." Was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his daughter, about Minu and his 3 children, about and her patience, about dying to save those kids, about's last transmission. "Bring here," said. "I want to look him in the eye." An hour later, Overlord was escorted onto the bridge of the Remembrance. The leader was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in dark scales. He was flanked by human guards. His claws had been bound, his weapons removed. He looked at the human was small compared to him, old, gray-haired, but his eyes held something that made look away. "You wanted to see me, human," said, trying to sound strong. "Walk to the viewport. Look at your world, Overlord. Beautiful, isn't it? How many people live there?" 12 billion, said quietly. "We had 249,000 on Sol," said. "You killed them all. You glassed the planet, made it uninhabitable forever." He turned to face. "I could do the same to your world right now. I have 400,000 ships out there. Your world would be ash in an hour." Scales went pale. The Galactic Council would. "The Galactic Council told you to surrender," interrupted. "They told you the humans were coming. You ignored them. You thought we were weak." Pulled up a hologram showing the tactical situation. "We split our fleet into 70 battle groups. Each group has 10,000 ships. Each group is larger than your entire navy was before we destroyed it. We did this in 6 months. Do you understand what that means?" Didn't answer. "It means we could have built more," said. "It means if we wanted to, we could build 1,000,000 ships, 10 million. We chose 700,000 because it was enough. We chose to show restraint." He pulled up images of Sol, the burning buildings, the dead children, the glassed planet. "You showed no restraint. You gave civilians 8 hours to evacuate, then you attacked early. You murdered families. You erased our colony from existence." Captain entered the bridge. She commanded the Orbital Bombardment Division, 3,000 ships armed with the same weapons that had destroyed Sol. She stopped next to. "Admiral, my division is ready. We can commence bombardment on your order." His composure finally broke. "Please, we surrender. We'll do anything. Don't kill my people. They're innocent." "So were ours," said softly. "That's the difference between us, Overlord. You didn't care. We do." He turned to, "Captain, begin evacuation operations. I want all civilians moved to safe zones. Anyone who wants to leave the planet can do so. We'll provide transport." Stared, "You're evacuating them." "We're not," you said. "We don't murder civilians. We don't glass inhabited worlds. We came here for justice, not genocide." He pulled up new orders on the display. "Your military installations will be destroyed. Every base, every shipyard, every weapons facility. But we'll evacuate everyone first. We'll give them time to leave. We'll make sure they're safe." Stepped forward. "It will take 2 weeks to evacuate all military sites. We'll wait, then we'll destroy them all." The next 2 weeks were strange. Human ships that had come to fight instead ran evacuation operations. They transported military personnel and their families away from bases before destroying them. They provided food and medicine. They even helped with refugees fleeing the war zones. They couldn't understand it. Captain's crew explained it to confused workers they were evacuating from a shipyard. "You're soldiers, so you'll face trial," said. "But your families didn't attack us. Your children didn't burn ours. We're not here to punish innocent people." A officer asked, "Then why did you come with so many ships?" "Because we needed you to understand," replied. "We needed your overlord to see that humanity will protect its own. We needed the galaxy to see that you can't attack us without consequences. But we also needed to show that we're not monsters. We're better than that." The civilians started to understand. The humans could have destroyed everything, could have done to the what they had done to Sol, but they didn't. They chose mercy. Once all the evacuations were complete, the human fleet went to work. Military bases were destroyed with precision strikes. Shipyards were demolished. Weapons facilities were reduced to rubble. They watched as their military infrastructure was systematically dismantled. Doctor's planet crackers were brought to 3 more fortress worlds. These were purely military installations, with no civilian populations. After confirming they were empty, the humans shattered them. The message was clear. The military was finished. A resistance tried to fight back. 500 ships crewed by soldiers who refused to surrender. They attacked a human supply convoy. 100 human destroyers responded. The battle lasted 20 minutes. All 500 ships were destroyed. Human losses, 3 vessels. After that, the resistance ended. There was no point. The humans were too strong, too many, too determined. Throughout all of this, traveled with the fleet. He visited different ships, speaking to the crews. He told them about Sol, about his family, about the people who died. "I don't want revenge," he told one group of young soldiers. "Revenge would be doing to them what they did to us, killing their children, burning their worlds. That's not who we are." He looked out at the Justice is making sure they can never do this again. Justice is showing them that their way was wrong. Justice is being better than them. The soldiers listened. Many of them had wanted simple revenge when they volunteered, but seeing the civilians, seeing their fear, seeing families just like human families, it changed something. They were still angry, still hurt, but they understood what meant. After 3 months of operations, Admiral called Overlord back to the remembrance. "Your empire is finished," said. "Your military is destroyed. Your weapons are gone. Your shipyards are rubble. It would take you 200 years to rebuild if we let you." He pulled up a treaty document. "These are our terms. Your empire is reduced to your and one nearby system. You're forbidden from building military vessels for 200 years. Any violation means we come back." Read through the terms. They were harsh but not impossible. They would survive. They would be weak for centuries, but they would live. "There's more," said. "You will pay reparations. You will build a new human colony on Sol's moon. You will send engineers, materials, everything needed. And you will help build a memorial." "A memorial?" asked. 249,153 names, said. "Every person who died. We want them carved in stone. We want a place where humans can go and remember. And we want your people to maintain it. Forever. So you never forget what you did." Nodded slowly. "And if we refuse?" Gestured to the viewport. 400,000 ships still surrounded the planet. "Then we keep fighting. We destroy every military asset in your empire. We occupy your worlds. We stay here for a century if we have to." Or, added, "You can accept the terms. Rebuild your civilization peacefully. Live under our observation. Prove you can change." Looked at the treaty again. At the terms that would break his empire's power forever. At the reparations that would impoverish his people. At the memorial that would stand as eternal proof of shame. "I accept," he said finally. The treaty was signed aboard the Remembrance, transmitted it to Earth and all human worlds. The war was over. Humanity had won. That night stood alone in his quarters. He looked at a photo of his daughter. She smiled back at him, forever young, forever happy. "We did it," he whispered. "We brought them justice. We showed the galaxy what humanity is capable of, but we also showed them we're better than those who wronged us." He touched the photo gently. "I miss you, every day, but I hope you'd be proud of what we did here. We won the war without becoming the monsters they were." Outside, the fleet began preparations to leave. 700,000 ships would return home. They had accomplished their mission. They were defeated. Justice had been served. But the cost weighed heavily on every human heart. 6 months after the war ended, stood on the surface of Sol's moon. Construction crews worked around him, both human and building the new colony. In the distance, the ruined planet hung in the sky like a gray ghost. An engineer approached him nervously. His name was, and he was young, maybe 20 years old by their reckoning. He had been a student when the war happened. "Sir, we've completed the memorial foundation. Would you like to inspect it?" Followed him to a massive structure being built at the colony's center. It was a circular wall, 3 stories tall, made of black stone. The surface was covered in names. Thousands and thousands of names, each carved with care. 249,153 names, said quietly. It will take us another 3 months to finish carving them all. Found his family's names, his wife, his daughter, his son. He touched the stone, tracing the letters with his fingers. I'm sorry, said. For what my people did, I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. Looked at the young, he saw genuine remorse in his eyes. Were you a soldier? No, sir, I was studying engineering, but we all cheered when we heard about Soul. We thought it proved superiority. Scales darkened with shame. We didn't think of you as people, as families. We celebrated your deaths. And now asked. Now I know how wrong we were. My government teaches us human history now. We learn about Soul in school. We learn about the people who died, about what they were like. Looked at the memorial. We learned that you could have destroyed us, but you chose mercy instead. Nodded slowly. That's why we came, not just for revenge, to teach that lesson. On Earth, the trials were beginning. Admiral sat in the gallery of the International Court, watching as Overlord was led into the courtroom. With him were 3,000 military commanders who had been directly involved in the attack on Seoul. The courtroom was packed. Representatives from every species in the Galactic Council attended. This trial would set the precedent for war crimes in the galaxy. Ambassador, humanity's chief negotiator, presented the evidence. The recordings from Seoul, the testimony of survivors, the proof that they had attacked 4 hours earlier than promised, giving civilians no chance to escape. His lawyer tried to argue it was simply war, that they had believed they were facing a military threat. Seoul had 47 police officers, said calmly. No military base, no weapons platforms, no fleet. It was a farming colony, 249,000 civilians, and your client ordered them all killed. The evidence was overwhelming. After 3 weeks of testimony, the court reached its verdict. Overlord, you are found guilty of crimes against sapient life, specifically genocide, murder of civilians, and violation of basic galactic law. You and 846 of your commanders are sentenced to life imprisonment. 847, the same number as the survivors. The remaining commanders received lesser sentences. They would serve time, then be released to help rebuild their civilization under human supervision. After the trial, met with one last time. There was bound for a prison facility that would be his home for the rest of his life. Why, asked. Why not just kill me, kill all of us? Why waste resources keeping us alive? Because we're not you, said. We don't believe in easy solutions. We believe in justice, real justice. That means you live with what you've done. Every day for the rest of your life, you'll know you destroyed Seoul. You'll know you failed your people. You'll know that humanity proved to be better than you. Scales lost their color. That was a worse punishment than death. 2 years after the war, the new Seoul colony was complete. 50,000 humans lived on the moon now, with more arriving every month. The memorial stood at the heart of the colony, a constant reminder of what had been lost and why they were there. Captain commanded the garrison that supervised compliance with the treaty. She had a strange relationship with the workers who maintained the memorial. At first, they had been resentful, forced to care for a monument to their defeat. But over time, something changed. She found at the memorial one evening. He was cleaning the names, making sure each one was clearly visible. You're here late, said. I wanted to make sure everything was perfect, replied. Tomorrow is the anniversary. Survivors are coming to visit. Watched him work. Why do you care? Stopped and looked at her. Because I learned their stories. Minyu was a colony administrator who loved his children, was a doctor who died trying to save her patients, was an engineer who threw himself over children to protect them, was a teacher who recorded everything so the truth wouldn't die with her. He touched one of the names. They were people just like us, and we killed them because we thought they were less than us. We were wrong. Felt tears in her eyes. You understand, finally. Some of us do, said. The younger generation. We're growing up with the truth. We're taught to be ashamed of what our empire did. And we're taught to be grateful that humanity showed us mercy we didn't deserve. The next day, survivors came to the memorial. Was there, older now, his hair gray. He walked along the wall touching names. His family, his friends, his neighbors. Young stood in rows, silent and respectful. They had been taught to attend every memorial ceremony, to witness human grief, to understand the cost of their empire's choice. Ambassador spoke at the ceremony. Her words were broadcast across both human and space. We stand here today to remember 249,153 people. They were farmers and teachers, doctors and engineers, parents and children. They harmed no one. They wanted only to live in peace. She looked at the in attendance. The empire took them from us, and humanity responded with overwhelming force. We brought 700,000 warships. We destroyed your military. We could have destroyed you completely. But we didn't. We chose a harder path. We chose to show mercy, to prove that justice is not the same as revenge, to teach that even in our darkest moment, humanity remains humane. She turned back to the memorial. These names remind us of what we lost, but they also remind us of what we preserved, our values, our principles, our humanity. 50 years later, Seoul Colony had grown to 500,000 people. The memorial still stood at its center, maintained by workers as the treaty required. But something had changed. The who maintained it now were volunteers. They saw it as an honor, not a punishment. They brought their children to the memorial and told them the stories of the people who died there. Doctor's great-granddaughter visited the colony. She was a historian researching the war. She interviewed who worked at the memorial. Why do you do this? She asked a middle-aged named Mora. Because we must never forget, Mora said. My grandfather was a soldier in the war. He survived because the humans evacuated him before destroying his base. He always said, they could have killed us all, but they chose to be better. Mora touched the memorial wall. This isn't just about your dead, it's about our shame and our redemption. Every name here reminds us that we were once a cruel empire and that humanity taught us a better way. The had changed. The generation that grew up under human supervision learned different values. They studied human history, human philosophy, human ethics. They learned about the long path humanity had taken, from their own wars to the peace they achieved. The Galactic Council published a report on the Seoul incident and its aftermath. It became required reading for every species in the galaxy. The humans demonstrated something remarkable, the report concluded. They showed that a civilization can be both powerful enough to destroy its enemies and wise enough not to. They proved that justice and mercy are not weaknesses but strengths. They changed not just but our understanding of what it means to be civilized. Admiral died at age 97, surrounded by family. His funeral was attended by thousands, including a delegation from. They came to honor the man who had defeated them but also showed them mercy. At his grave, they placed a stone from Seoul's moon. On it was carved, "He taught us that true strength is knowing when not to strike." Lived to be 103. He spent his final years at the memorial telling visitors about his family, about Minyu and about all the people who died. On his last visit to the memorial, a young asked him, "Do you forgive us?" Thought for a long time. "I don't know if I can forgive. The hurt is still there, but I can accept that you're different now, that you learned, that our people's sacrifice taught the galaxy something important." He looked at the young. "Your people killed my family, but you personally didn't. You grew up in the world we created, wherein humans work together, where you maintain this memorial not because you have to, but because you choose to. That's what we fought for. The galaxy learned its lesson. No species ever attacked a human colony again, not because they feared humanity's warships, though those 700,000 vessels remained ready in storage, but because they understood what humanity represented, a civilization that would protect its people with overwhelming force, then show mercy in victory. The names on the memorial at Seoul remained clear and readable, maintained by hands and remembered by human hearts. 249,153 people who died, but whose deaths changed the galaxy forever. They had been farmers and teachers, doctors and engineers, parents and children. They had wanted only to live in peace. In death, they taught the most important lesson, that justice tempered with mercy is the highest achievement of civilization. The stars that once went dark with 700,000 warships now shone bright with hope. Humanity had proven what it meant to be human, not just in how they fought, but in how they won. Not just in their power, but in their restraint. Not just in their anger, but in their ultimate choice of mercy. And the galaxy would never forget.